I pursued Miles Chu for 3 years and he finally agreed to my confession. He couldn't wait to marry me in a flash wedding. After marriage, he took care of me with meticulous attention. Everyone said I married for love and found happiness. But just as I was 10 months pregnant and about to give birth, I overheard Miles Chu saying to his close friend, "If it weren't for Zoe's illness requiring her umbilical cord blood, I would never have married Norah Cheen, even if beaten to death." None of you know this. But after sleeping with her, I rushed to the bathroom to vomit. Now the stretch marks on her belly look like tangled earthworms. Once she gives birth, I'll find an excuse to send her away. It wasn't until that moment I realized the cousin I'd hated since childhood, Zoe Jong, was actually my father's love child. And she had already been sleeping with Miles Chu. In a daze, I went up to the operating table and never came back down. Opening my eyes again, I found myself back to the nth time before confessing to Miles Chu. This time I choose not to love anymore. The indescribable labor pains seemed to still be coming in waves. I couldn't help but arch my body, my hand reaching toward my lower abdomen. No plump and round belly, only a slender waist that's barely a handful. I leaned on the stone bench by the school path and sat down. It took me a long while to be certain. I had been reborn. Reborn back to my sophomore year of college in my hand. I still clutched the love letter I had spent several nights writing along with the birthday gift for Miles Chu that I had saved up my pocket money for so long. Memories of the past flashed before my eyes like a revolving lantern. I loved Miles Chu for 3 years from senior high school to university. Perhaps it was because he tutored me during senior high. Or maybe it was his handsome appearance, extraordinary knowledge, and melancholic temperament that made me infatuated with him. Over the past 3 years, I've confessed to him countless times. Each time, he coldly rejected me. He always told me, "Norah, now is the time to study. We must work hard." Everyone at school says that Miles Chu from the finance department is an unattainable flower. Admire from afar, but do not touch. Countless girls pursued him. Yet he rejected each one equally. Many girls after being rejected would grieve for a few days before moving on to other targets. Only I grew more determined with each setback, persistently clinging and confessing my feelings time and again. In my past life, which is today, I once again handed him a love letter and gave him a gift. Unlike before, he didn't mercilessly throw the letter back at me. Instead, he unfolded it and read it carefully. After reading it, he asked me, "Norah, do you really like me?" Filled with joy, I nodded with a smile. Miles Chu asked me, "Norah, what do you like about me?" Without much thought, I replied directly, "I like everything about you, Brother Chu." "Really?" A faint curve appeared on his thin lips as if he was smiling. That day, he reached out and held me in his arms. "Norah, let's get married." I was shocked. I just wanted to be in a relationship. Not get married at least. I never thought about getting married while still in college. I stammered. "Brother Chu, what did you say?" "Marriage. Right? Marriage." Miles Chu said. "Didn't you say you like me? Don't you want to marry me?" The book says that any romantic relationship not aimed at marriage is just playing around. I've imagined countless times that my confession would succeed and sweet romance would be within my reach, but I truly never thought about skipping the dating process and jumping straight into marriage. Miles Chu's eyes were filled with deep affection as he held my waist and whispered in my ear, "Norah, do you know why I've always rejected you?" I shook my head. I truly didn't know. Everyone said he was the unattainable flower of the school, rejecting everyone equally. "I'm afraid," he said. "I'm afraid that after we've loved each other so deeply, in the end, we still can't be together." At that time, I had no doubts and loudly told him, "Norah loves Miles Chu forever and ever, never to part." That night, he made an excuse to take me out to play. We slowly made our way through the barbecue stalls near the school, his eyes gentle and his demeanor considerate. Then he took me to a small rundown hotel nearby and got a room. I was a little scared. I had known him for 3 years. Harbored a crush on him for 3 years. and confessed my feelings countless times. On the very day he accepted my confession, he took me to a hotel. But I had an urge to escape. I don't know how my past life was preserved. Or is it just infatuation? He took a shower. Wrapped in a bathrobe, revealing chocolate-like abs. The defined waistline making one blush. Baby. Go take a shower now. He urged me. This was the first time he called me baby. I was really scared. I've always been a good girl. Following the rules ever since I was little. College is supposed to be the season for love. But isn't love supposed to be different? Noticing my hesitation, Miles Chu hugged me and gently asked, Baby, don't you love me anymore? Of course I love him. In my past life, I had always loved him. I dodled through my bath, wrapped in a robe. I don't know how he tore off my robe. How? My first time. I didn't feel the slightest bit of love. Instead, I felt his roughness. His venting. Yes. It was just venting. After it was over, my body was covered in bruises. My lower abdomen was in unbearable pain. And there was an indescribable agony. Only after it was done did I think of a serious issue. Contraception. He didn't take any preventive measures. The shabby hotel provided free condoms which were placed in the drawer. I said, I'll go buy the medicine. Although I haven't experienced these things myself as a college student in this era of abundant information, I've heard and seen enough to understand some of the games adults play. Miles Chu smiled, put his arm around my shoulder, and said gently, Baby. It's okay. Just once. What are the chances? I heard that taking the pill is bad for your health. Don't take it. I've also heard that the pill is harmful to the body. So I took it at face value. Little did I know, everything was part of Miles Chu's scheme to save Zoe Jong. As early as our senior year of high school, when Miles Chu was tutoring me, he had already gotten involved with Zoe Jong, who was fostered in my home. The so-called unattainable flower on the high peak. Much like Zoe Jong's affectation of being as indifferent as a chrysanthemum was nothing more than a carefully crafted persona they had built. Deep down they are greedier and more despicable than anyone else. I opened a certain shopping app and returned that men's necklace. Then I headed straight to the campus courier station. After mailing the package and stepping out of the station, I saw Miles Chu standing at the entrance staring at me with a cold piercing gaze. Norah. He called me. What's up? I carefully concealed all the hatred in my heart. And the moment I looked up, I smiled as carefree as ever. Miles Chu tentatively said, Norah. My birthday is in a few days. Oh. I nodded and smiled. Happy birthday to you. Norah, didn't you prepare a birthday gift for me? Miles Chu asked again. A shiver ran through me. Something felt off. Theoretically, I should have gone to Miles Chu's dorm today to give him that expensive necklace and wish him a happy birthday and then hand him the love letter confessing my feelings. He would agree to my confession. Take me to the food street. Eat the cheapest food. And say the most worthless sweet nothings, then vent his animalistic desires in a shabby hotel. Forcing me to get pregnant. Now, when I have no past, he comes looking for me. Could it be that he has also been reborn? Thinking of this, I immediately tore up the love letter I had spent several nights writing into pieces and threw it into the trash bin right in front of him. Norah. What was that? Miles Chu seemed somewhat nervous, grabbing my wrist and exclaiming. A few small fragments had scattered on the ground, and he bent down to pick them up. For me? He asked me. I shook off his hand and nodded, saying, It was originally meant for you. Why did you tear it up? He asked me, his tone carrying reproach, seemingly concealing a hint of anger. Basking in the warm spring sunlight, I studied him carefully for a long moment before finally saying, Miles Chu, I used to like you quite a bit. So I chased after you for fun. But now I realize you're not all that special after all. So I've changed my target. I spread my hands, pretending to be utterly innocent, and declared loudly, What's the point of conquering the unattainable flower? In the end, it's just a poor loser. My new target is the school's heartthrob, young Master Chu. Miles Chu's expression turned rather unpleasant. I can assure you. He has also been reborn. Even though he hasn't said a word about it. In fact, he hasn't shown the slightest hint of it. But I know. I patted my mouth and shook my head, saying, Miles Chu, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you a poor loser. Of course, whether you forgive me or not doesn't matter. I don't care. In a relationship, you ultimately need to find someone from a similar background to truly feel connected. As I spoke, I waved my arms and started running. Bye. He grabbed me suddenly, pulling so hard I nearly fell to the ground. Norah, what are you making a fuss about? He scolded with a darkened expression. The Miles Chu before me, with a trace of ruthlessness deep in his eyes, gradually overlapped with the one from my past life. I pushed him away abruptly and said coldly, Classmate Chu, please behave yourself. You've rejected my confessions multiple times already. So stop pestering me. With that, I turned and walked away. Miles Chu stopped me again, his face cold as he asked, Norah Cheen, what kind of game are you playing? I was baffled. Miles Chu, are you out of your mind? I confessed my feelings to you and you looked completely annoyed. I'm not confessing anymore. What are you making a fuss about? Was your aloof persona just an act to get girls to fawn over you? Oh. It's your birthday and I didn't give you an expensive gift. So you're upset. I said these words particularly loudly at the entrance of the TSA post station. People coming and going all stopped to watch. I raised my voice again and said, Everyone, please judge for yourselves. I pursued Miles Chu for 3 years and he never accepted my confession. Yet he took every single gift I gave him without hesitation. In my past life, I was such a fool. I never once thought there was anything wrong with Miles Chu refusing my confession while accepting all the expensive gifts I sent him. Had I given it any serious thought, I wouldn't have met such a tragic end. A brain is a good thing. But a love-struck brain, better off without it. Norah, stop fooling around. Miles Chu reached out to grab me. Norah, I accept your confession. Let's go. With that, he actually tried to embrace me. I hurriedly pushed him away. Then I said with righteous indignation, Everyone here can bear witness. I no longer like Miles Chu. Sister. Suddenly, a soft and slightly timid voice came through. The moment I looked up, I saw Zoe Jong. I genuinely detest Zoe Jong, who is only 3 months younger than me. From the bottom of my heart. But my father adores her. From a young age. She was brought to our home under the pretense of keeping me company. From that moment on, she feigned fragility, playing the role of a little green tea girl, always putting on a pitiful, barely a surviving act every day. At the slightest provocation, she would be teary-eyed and breathless. My mother was busy with business, so most household matters were managed by my father. I always thought she had captured our father's affection by playing the innocent and sweet card in my past life. It wasn't until after I died that I learned she was actually our father's illegitimate child. The key point was she carried our father's surname to him. She represented his chauvinistic desire to carry on the family name. Sis, I've been talking to Brother Chu for a long time and he finally agreed to be with you. Don't you like him? Don't throw a tantrum. Zoe Jong pretended to be fragile and reached out to grab my hand. I shook off her hand and said coldly, What kind of person are you trying to persuade our unattainable flower? I'd like to ask instead, why does the unattainable flower listen to you? Were you two already involved from the start? As I shook off her hand, Zoe Jong pretended to twist her ankle, letting out a cry as she fell toward the ground. Miles Chu hurried to help her up. Miles Chu frowned and said, Norah, Zoe was just trying to advise you kindly. How could you treat her like this? I confronted him face to face and asked, What did I do to her? Miles Chu, what's between you and me? Is it her place to interfere? Zoe Jong hurriedly stepped in again to mediate, advising, Sister, don't be like this. I know you're upset, but Brother Chu only refused you at first because he had your best interests at heart. The truth is, Brother Chu has always had you in his heart. I didn't wait for her to finish speaking and directly snapped enough. How could you be so clear about who some random man has in his heart? If you like him, then you two can be together. I don't like him anymore now. Sorry. Don't disturb me. With that, I turned and walked away, waiting until I got back to the dorm. I took advantage of the empty room to call my mom. I needed to tell my mom the truth that Zoe Jong was actually my dad's illegitimate child so she could be wary of my dad. The call connected. After exchanging a few casual words with my mom, I got straight to the point. Mom, there's something I don't know if I should tell you. Sweetheart. What is it? Need more money? My mom asked me. Since I was little, my mom has been busy with her business. She always felt she owed me. And the way she could make it up to me was with money. No. Mom. Zoe Jong might be Dad's illegitimate child. I said after speaking. I felt uneasy in my heart. But if I didn't say anything about this matter, the consequences would be severe. On the other end of the phone, my mother was silent for a long time before finally saying, Norah, I had my suspicions early on. How did you find out? I thought about it. I couldn't very well tell my mom that I had been reborn, that in my past life, I was love-struck, and that when I died, I was naked with severe tearing in my lower body. In an utterly horrific state. I pondered for a moment before saying, Mom, she has a birthmark on her left arm that's exactly the same as Dad's. On the other end of the phone, I had a subtle feeling that my mom was testing me. Norah, if she really is your father's illegitimate child, what should we do? What should we do? Only after my death in my previous life did I realize that the man I called Dad, who had always doted on me and held me in the palm of his hand, was the mastermind behind this sinister plot. By eliminating me, his daughter with his mistress could rightfully inherit everything that belonged to my mother. 3 generations to reclaim the ancestral name. This would fully satisfy his twisted male chauvinism. Mom, can you bear to divorce him? I asked. Mom, if Zoe Jong is really his illegitimate child, judging by her age, he was already with another woman when you were just pregnant. I said. As someone who has been reborn, I naturally know there's no if about it. Zoe Jong is indeed my father's illegitimate child. This is an indisputable fact. Naturally, my mother said firmly over the phone. I instantly felt a wave of relief. Even if I reject Miles Chu and stop being love-struck after being reborn. But if my closest relatives are eyeing me greedily, who knows if the same tragedies from my past life will happen again. Moreover, I must also be on guard against him targeting my mother. This is entirely possible. If he could harm his own daughter whom he had raised for so many years, let alone a woman he never loved. Norah, there's one more thing, my mom said on the phone. Mom? Go ahead, I replied eagerly. Sweetheart, I don't oppose you dating. But I think Miles Chu is somewhat two-faced and not worth your genuine affection, my mom said carefully, weighing her words. Mom? I don't like him anymore, I said with a chuckle. Huh? On the other end of the phone, my mom seemed a bit surprised. Mom? Think about it. At first, I hadn't seen much of the world. And he was the only guy around my age I interacted with. Decent looking. I guess. I had a bit of a crush on him, but now I'm in college. And there are so many good-looking guys here. Lately, I've kind of taken a liking to our campus heartthrob. I'm planning to find a chance to confess my feelings to him in a few days. On the phone, my mom kept agreeing and said, That's good. Then, Norah, while you're young, look around more. Have more fun. No need to rush. Yes. Mom. You're right. I said there's one more thing. My mother continued. Norah. Starting now, our family will no longer be sponsoring Zoe Jong. She came to our home at the age of 5 and has been treated the same as you in terms of food and lodging. Let's not even discuss what kind of person she really is. After all, our family has supported her for so many years. We've done more than enough. Even though we were on the phone, I could still sense my mom's disdain for Zoe Jong. I always felt something was off. In reality, Zoe Jong is quite good at putting on an act, playing the role of a delicate, Pitiable little flower. She speaks sweetly and is undeniably beautiful. My mom used to like her quite a bit. I was the only one in the family who didn't like her. And over this matter, I even threw a few tantrums. My mother always smiled while my father held me in his arms and comforted me, saying, "Sweetheart, you're daddy's only treasure." Zoe lost both her parents at a young age. She's a poor little thing. Be a bit more accommodating to her. But as I kept accommodating, it felt like I ended up giving the whole family to her. Once again, my mother's voice reached my ears. So, from now on, our family will no longer provide her with living expenses. After all, we're not running a charity here. I quickly replied, "Okay, Mom. I really can't stand her." My dislike for her has been evident since childhood. From the very first day Dad brought her home. "Yes," my mom said. "Norah, it's all my fault for neglecting your feelings." After hanging up the phone, I still felt something was off. Could it be that my mom has also been reborn? Everyone reborn. That possibility isn't out of the question. One thing I can be sure of now is that Miles Chu must have been reborn. If my mom had also been reborn, then what about my dad and Zoe Jong? Late at night, Zoe Jong returned to the dormitory very late. Her eyes red and swollen as if she had been crying for a long time. When she saw me, she threw a silver bracelet in front of me and said in a dejected voice, "Norah Cheen, stop acting up. Brother Chu gave this to you." I opened it and took a look. A delicate silver bracelet. Not even a branded one. It looked cheap at first glance. I tossed the silver bracelet directly to Zoe Jong and said, "What kind of trash is this? I don't want it." Zoe Jong seemed stunned for a moment. After a long pause, she asked me in disbelief, "Norah Cheen, this was a gift Brother Chu picked out for you after searching for so long. You don't want it. You really don't want it." I sneered. What woman would want such a cheap gift from a man? Whoever wants it can have it. I don't. As I spoke, my gaze fell on the silver bracelet on Zoe Jong's wrist. It's clear that Miles Chu bought a silver bracelet for Zoe Jong. That ridiculously thin bracelet, which would be impossible to pick up if dropped, was most likely a freebie. Utterly cheap and worthless. In my past life, had I been a bit more observant, I would have noticed that Miles Chu and Zoe Jong had long been secretly involved. Unfortunately, back then, I was completely blinded by love. If you don't want it, go tell Brother Chu yourself. I'm not your errand girl, Zoe Jong said coldly, tossing the bracelet back to me again. I find it really strange. Did I ever ask her to run errands for me? Zoe Jong, get your facts straight. Will you? I sneered coldly. Did I ever ask you to run errands? Did I ever involve you inappropriately between me and Miles Chu? With that, I climbed straight into bed and went to sleep. In the early hours of the morning, I woke up from a nightmare. Drenched in cold sweat. I dreamed of Miles Chu. I dreamed of my dad in a past life. I got pregnant after Miles Chu and I tasted the forbidden fruit. I was very panicked since childhood. I had always been a good girl, though my dad had always liked Zoe Jong, saying she was well behaved and sensible. But me, I loved to play and laugh. Acting wild and carefree with a bold and unrestrained personality that wasn't very likable. But I never had rebellious thoughts in my heart. So after getting pregnant, I was very panicked inside. I discussed with Miles Chu about secretly going to the hospital to abort the child. Upon hearing this, Miles Chu immediately hugged me. "Norah, what are you saying? We have a child." He feigned a look of deep affection, reaching out to stroke my abdomen. His face beaming with joy. Like the first thaw of ice and snow. Or like a spring breeze brushing against flowering branches, causing 100 blossoms to bloom overnight. A man whose smile carried an unexpectedly alluring charm. For some reason, at that moment, his smile seemed to have touched me. I wasn't as afraid anymore. I thought, through all the storms and hardships, there would eventually be someone to walk hand in hand with me. Till death do us part. Alas, it was all just a deception. Miles Chu counted on his fingers. planning names for the child, Brother Chu. The thought of aborting the child got stuck in my throat as if I couldn't quite bring myself to say it. But in the end, I still said it. Brother Chu, let's abort the child. We're still in college. Hearing that I wanted to abort the child, Miles Chu's face immediately darkened. Norah, do you realize what you're saying? This is a little life. The fruit of our love. And you're saying you want to abort it. But I hadn't finished my sentence. Miles Chu waved his hand and said, "What's more important? Studying or our child?" Norah. No wonder everyone says you're foolish. You can't even tell what's urgent and what's not. Does the school have any rules saying college students can't have babies? He said. Norah. Take advantage of the summer break to go home and get your household registration booklet. Let's get our marriage license. Then this child will be legitimate. Hearing him bring up getting married again, I felt somewhat hesitant. I said, I'm scared. Miles Chu said. Norah. I understand you're scared. How about this? Discuss it with your dad first and don't tell your stepmom yet. After all, I come from a humble background and your stepmom has always looked down on me. But don't worry. I'll work hard to give you a good life. I fell for his sweet talk and called my dad. I thought I would face my father's storm of anger, but after learning about my pregnancy, he seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. He told me not to overthink it and to focus on taking care of the pregnancy. What I never expected in my wildest dreams was that just a day later, my father came to my school with my household registration booklet and his reasoning was exactly the same as Miles Chu's. He said I should get the marriage certificate with Miles Chu first and then have the baby. He was also busy renting a house near the school for me to stay in first. Norah. I know you like Miles. But your mother has always been against you being with him. If your mother finds out, she will definitely make you abort the child. Abortion is harmful to your health. Take good care of yourself. The pregnancy isn't too far along. And you can still continue your studies. When you're further along in your pregnancy, just focus on taking good care of yourself and the baby. You can always continue your studies after giving birth. As for the missed coursework, let Zoe help you catch up. And so, under my father's paternal love, amidst Miles Chu's sweet words, and fueled by the envy of the innocent Zoe Jong, I began to happily embrace my role as an expectant mother. As my pregnancy progressed, the school became rife with gossip and whispers. Reluctantly, I went through the procedures to take a leave of absence from school. I stayed at the place my father rented for me, waiting to give birth. At this time, my mother went abroad for a business trip. She left in quite a hurry. Only after I died did I realize that it was a trap my father had dug, deliberately sending her away. Starting from about 3 months into my pregnancy, Miles Chu began cooking me highly nourishing foods. My father also frequently brought over some ingredients. Miles Chu would always say to me, Norah, I made this with my own hands. You must eat it all. Norah, eat more so the baby can get more nutrients. Norah, I worked a whole week to afford this. How could you waste it? Hurry up and eat. Eat up. Eat up. Eat up. I thought this was love. Miles Chu's affection for me as a partner. My father's paternal love for me. I also knew that during pregnancy, excessive nutrition and insufficient exercise could lead to an oversized fetus and consequently a difficult delivery. However, Miles Chu told me, Norah, don't watch those mindless palace intrigue romance dramas. In ancient times, those noble ladies weren't in the best of health and indeed had difficulties with childbirth. But it's different now with advanced medical technology. Even if the baby is a bit larger, a C-section can be performed. Eat more, so the baby gets enough nutrition. And your health won't suffer either. I believed it to be true. Indeed, surgical techniques are advanced now. And a C-section is just a minor procedure. Even if the baby is a bit larger, it's not a problem. However, when it came time for delivery and the baby was too large for a smooth birth, the doctor recommended a C-section. But Miles Chu refused to sign the consent form. I lay on the delivery bed in pain for a full day and night. My lower body torn. Yet, the baby still wouldn't come out. Doctors came in and out asking Miles Chu to sign the papers for a cesarean section. But each time he refused. Not only did he refuse, but my father also refused. Driven to desperation by the doctor, Miles Chu revealed his ferocious side, pointing at the doctor and shouting angrily. What woman doesn't give birth? Is Norah the only one who's delicate? In so much pain she can't deliver? If she can't give birth, she deserves it. In ancient times, there were no surgical procedures, no C-sections, and yet humanity didn't go extinct. Let her give birth naturally. She must deliver the baby. My father also chimed in, exactly. A perfectly healthy person shouldn't be cut open. No C-section. We absolutely refuse it in our family. Let her give birth. She must deliver the baby. In the end, the doctor had no choice but to have them sign the hospital's liability waiver. I begged the doctors and nurses to perform a C-section on me. The doctors and nurses assisting in the delivery initially showed me great sympathy. But in the end, perhaps out of sheer helplessness, a young nurse, her hands covered in blood, grabbed my hand, frantic and furious, and cried, "Who else can you blame for marrying such a heartless and cruel man?" And so, in the end, I died in the hospital. A tragic death of both mother and unborn child. How foolish. At dawn, with the dormitory curtains tightly drawn, I steadied my nerves, turned on a small night light, and got up to go to the bathroom. Having been reborn, I am determined to fully enjoy my university days this time around. Reading, playing, and screwing over Miles Chu. The three great things in life. As for Zoe Jong, I just need to wait and watch. Her days are numbered. Without my child's umbilical cord blood, she's as good as dead. The next day at noon, while I was eating in the school cafeteria, Miles Chu suddenly sent me a message. Baby, why didn't you accept the gift I sent you? Hearing him call me baby, I was once again certain. He must have been reborn, too. In our past life, he always liked to call me that. But now, just seeing the word baby makes me sick. I thought for a moment before replying. Miles Chu, what do you mean? What gift did you give me? I only had one class in the afternoon. After it ended, I carried my books and sat on a stone bench on campus, gazing at the blue sky and white clouds under the bright spring sunshine. It was already late spring. Most of the peach and plum blossoms had already faded, leaving only the late blooming cherry blossoms, lush and vibrant, adorning the branches with their delicate pink hues. Under the grass beside the stone bench, two little kittens were frolicking and playing. I stared at the kittens for a long time, puzzled in my heart. What kind of medicine did I take in my past life to have liked Miles Chu if I hadn't liked him? This splendid youth would have been mine to enjoy freely, and the vast world would have been mine to explore. I opened my phone and ordered myself a cup of milk tea. No need to support Miles Chu. And suddenly, my finances became very ample. Thinking about it, my past self was truly absurd. With 5 or 6,000 in monthly pocket money, my skincare products and clothes were all bought by my mom. Eating and drinking as I pleased, I could have lived a very comfortable life. Yet, despite his financial struggles, Miles Chu remained steadfast in his aspirations and had a peculiar obsession with luxury goods. To please him, I saved up to buy him shoes, belts, ties. He even hinted subtly that he wanted a Rolex Submariner in green. As the unattainable flower of the school, he always carried himself with an air of superiority, exuding an aura of nobility and prestige. Although my family is wealthy, I've always been stubborn and would never ask them for money because of this. So, not only did I scrimp and save, but I also took on odd jobs during holidays to maintain his image. Here I am, a bona fide rich kid, living so frugally that I can't even afford bubble tea on a regular day. When the bubble tea arrived, I casually bought 2 sausages from the neighboring shop to feed the cats. Sitting back down on the stone bench at school, I happily sipped my milk tea while teasing the little cat. But the good times didn't last long. The person who disgusts me arrived. Miles Chu stood to the side watching me. wearing a white shirt with his hands in his pockets. I mischievously grinned for a moment, probably seeing me smile. Miles Chu thought I had changed my mind. He walked up to me and said with a smile, "Norah, not angry anymore." I tilted my head and chuckled lightly. Why would I be angry with you? Just a scumbag. That's all. But he clearly misunderstood and actually tried to sit down next to me. I stood up, tossed the ham sausage in my hand to the kitten, and walked toward the girls' dormitory with my milk tea. Norah, didn't you say you weren't angry? Miles Chu hurriedly blocked my way. Mr. Chu, if you have something to say, say it. But keep your hands to yourself. You're the untouchable flower on the high peak. Don't ruin your image, I said mockingly. Miles Chu slightly furrowed his brows and said, Norah, you're clearly still angry, aren't you? I frowned and said, Miles Chu, why can't I get through to you? Before, I thought you looked decent and pursued you for fun. But that was because I didn't know your dirty secrets. I thought you were truly unattainable. Now that I know, of course, I won't like you anymore. Oh, by the way, you've rejected me many times. Since you've rejected me, then please return all the gifts I gave you. I've already made a list. It doesn't matter if they're broken or old, but you must return them to me. Otherwise, I'll expose you on the school's public wall. As I spoke, my gaze fell on Miles Chu's belt. A Hermes belt. I bought it for him this year with my New Year's money. In my past life, I never understood, thinking he was an unattainable flower, believing he truly had no interest in love. Only after death did I realize that it was part of his PUA tactics. He enjoyed the pleasure of me fawning over him like AS while at the same time he could take my money and belongings. A total gold digger. With that, I prepared to leave again. Miles Chu swept his hand and grabbed my collar, nearly causing me to fall to the ground. I steadied myself by holding on to a nearby tree. What exactly are you trying to pull? Miles Chu's tone carried a hint of impatience. Norah, I've already humbled myself to coax you. You're angry, yet you won't say why. Just throwing this senseless tantrum. Probably realizing his tone wasn't good. Miles Chu restrained himself a bit before saying, Baby, stop making a scene. I won't reject you anymore in the future. Let's have a proper relationship and live well together. With all the strength I could muster, I screamed hysterically. Get lost. Who wants to date you? Why don't you take a piss and look at yourself in it? What kind of trash are you? A rotten cucumber? Disgusting garbage scum? A low life who plays with girls' feelings? Miles Chu was stunned by my scolding. Taking advantage of his stunned moment, I flung the milk tea in my hand straight at him. Miles Chu, don't be so full of yourself. I don't like you. So stop harassing me. Got it. Miles Chu didn't snap out of it. Probably never expected that I'd drench him head to face with milk tea. So he stared blankly at the sticky mess of milk tea on himself for a long moment before finally snapping. Noreen, are you insane? What the hell is wrong with you? I turned and walked away. I hated him to the core and I was indeed sick in the head. I had just returned to the dorm when Zoe Jong came up to me, pointing her finger and saying, Noreen, what's your problem? Why would you do this to Brother Chu? I sneered. What? You want to play the hero? What's your relationship with him that you're speaking up for him like this? Zoe Jong stammered. But ultimately didn't dare say anything. After a long pause, she finally spoke. Back in high school, Brother Chu tutored us. So, in a way, he's half a teacher. Respect for teachers and their teachings. I didn't wait for her to finish and sneered. Respect for teachers and their teachings. So, you offered your beautiful body for your teacher to enjoy. Zoe Jong. How disgusting can you be? If you like each other, then just be together. Zoe Jong's mouth hung open as she stared at me in stunned silence. In my past life, I never knew that back when Miles Chu was invited to tutor us during high school, he had secretly been sleeping with Zoe Jong all along. He poured out his emotions on Zoe Jong while also coveting my family's wealth and me, the devoted follower. So, He maintained his aloof and unattainable persona, accepting all the expensive gifts I gave him without hesitation. Yet, he rejected every one of my confessions behind my back. He once mocked me with Zoe Jong. A lapdog. Just dangle a bone in front of her, and she'll keep chasing after it with her head down. Zoe Jong. Keep your man in check. Tell him to stop harassing me and make him return all the expensive gifts I gave him over the past 3 years. Otherwise, I will hold him accountable. After I scolded her, Zoe Jong ran out of the dormitory in tears. A week later, I reported it to the police. I compiled all the expensive gifts I had bought for Miles Chu over the past 3 years, along with the transfer records. It wasn't until I organized everything that I realized over 3 years I had transferred more than 200 yuan to Miles Chu. As for the expensive gifts I gave him, the total amount exceeded 300 yuan. The total amount added up to a staggering 610. Then, armed with the evidence I had asked the paparazzi to collect of Miles Chu and Zoe Jong being together, I went to the police with tears and snot streaming down my face. I told the officer that I had been scammed. Hearing the word scam, the officer immediately became tense and asked me how much I had lost and whether the amount was significant. Then I told the whole story exactly as it happened. Officer, you see, he's been with my cousin since early on. At the end of last year, he even took her to get an abortion. But he's been stringing me along the whole time, tricking me into buying him gifts and spending money on him. Oh, and he also borrowed money from me. Look. Here are all the chat records. The policeman frowned as he carefully examined the evidence I had submitted. When I came to report the incident, I had prepared thoroughly. The paparazzo I hired was exceptionally professional, not only capturing footage of Miles Chu and Zoe Jong being intimate. He even investigated their hotel check-in records. He even provided me with a copy of their visit to a small clinic for an abortion. The police believe first. Miles Chu and Zoe Jong had already established a romantic relationship but failed to clarify this with me, exhibiting a tendency to conceal the truth through their actions. Second, in my chat records with Miles Chu, he repeatedly directly or indirectly hinted at me to give him expensive gifts, which indeed constitutes fraudulent behavior. Finally, in addition to the aforementioned financial matters, Miles Chu also borrowed 12,000 from me under the pretext of needing a loan. There are chat records and transfer records as evidence. Therefore, Miles Chu did indeed commit fraud. The police summoned Miles Chu. In such cases, mediation is usually the first step. The police ordered him to return all the money I had spent on him over the past 3 years inside the police station. Miles Chu's expression was gloomy. He said he wanted to talk to me alone. I shook my head and refused, saying directly, "There's nothing that can't be said in front of others. Classmate Chu, if you have something to say, please speak up." Reluctantly, he ran his fingers through his hair, putting on a deeply affectionate act, and said, "Norah, stop making a scene. I was just humoring Zoe. You should know that the one I truly love is you." I put on an innocent and naive expression, pointing at him and saying, "You're lying. You and Zoe Jong have been together for so long, even have a child together. And now you say you like me." Miles Chu had no choice but to quickly say, All right. Norah, stop making a scene. It's my fault. I apologize to you. And I promise to love you properly from now on." I sneered and said, "Miles Chu, the reason I liked you in the first place was because you were the unattainable flower on the high peak. Now that you're this filthy, I can't stand the sight of you with either eye. Moreover, since you're in love with Zoe Jong, you should treat her well instead of coveting her body while eyeing my money. Your behavior is that of a two-timing scumbag. You must return what belongs to me. It doesn't matter if the things are old or broken, but you must return them to me. You must also return the money you borrowed from me." The police also helped me persuade Miles Chu, telling him that by concealing the fact that he had a girlfriend, he was indeed engaging in fraudulent behavior. If he doesn't return my money, I can sue him finally with the mediation of the police and my unrelenting stance. He wrote me an IOU for 530 yuan, promising to repay it in full within a month. I told him that if he didn't repay, I would definitely sue him and make sure he ended up behind bars. I'm not sure if this kind of case can actually land him in jail, but at the very least, it can cause him trouble and ruin his reputation. Just the thought of knocking him off his high horse and tarnishing his pristine image brings me immense satisfaction. What made me both laugh and cry was that Miles Chu dared to write me that 53,000 yuan IU at the police station because he was confident he could win me over within a month. In his mind, I was the most loyal S by his side. With just a little trick, he believed I would surely kneel at his feet and continue to worship him. He thought everything I was doing now was out of jealousy after learning about his affair with Zoe Jong. Just a little girl's tantrum. As we left the police station, he tried to hold my hand. I slapped it away. Miles Chu, stay away from me. Don't you know how filthy you are? Miles Chu rarely spoke to me in such a humble tone, saying, "All right, Norah. I know I was wrong. I only did it for your own good." I let out a mocking laugh, somewhat baffled by his logic. For my own good. I'd like to see what kind of lie this scumbag can come up with. Norah, you need to understand. I'm a normal man with strong urges and I need an outlet. I just couldn't bear to vent my frustrations on you. She came to me willingly. So, I agreed. Think about it. How painful an abortion is. If it were you, I definitely wouldn't have the heart to put you through that. Let her suffer these hardships. In the future, I will love you well and cherish you dearly. Norah, you must understand. I always need to practice my skills. Only then can we be happy in the future. I couldn't help but cover my ears and turn to leave. I never would have dreamed that the so-called unattainable flower could utter such scummy words. Having lived 2 lifetimes, I still can't fathom what kind of twisted psychology this is. Or perhaps I should ask him what exactly does he think women are in his mind. Miles Chu caught up with me again. Norah, baby, don't be angry. I shook off his hand again as he tried to grab mine. Miles Chu, if you dare to harass me again, I'll call the police and report you for harassment, I said with a stern face. I've made it crystal clear to you. You're such a rotten, filthy thing that even looking at you disgusts me. Stop pretending to be so devoted to me. Get lost. With that, I turned and hailed a taxi to go to school. In the evening, I was binge-watching a show in the dorm when Zoe Jong walked over. The little white flower's face didn't look too good. Pale and Dublin. As if she had just been bullied. She tried to sit next to me, but I quickly stood up and stepped back a few paces, frowning as I asked, "Zoe Jong, what do you want?" Zoe Jong's tears instantly streamed down her face as if I had done something utterly unforgivable to her. "Sister, did I do something wrong?" Zoe Jong whispered softly. "Sister, I know it's my fault. I never had parents since childhood. Unlike you who have their love and care, I deliberately raised my voice and said, your parents are dead. What does that have to do with me? Sis? Please don't be like this." Zoe Jong nervously glanced at the other girls in the dorm. Sure enough, all the roommates were secretly peeking and eavesdropping, ready to enjoy the drama. Her eyes brimmed with tears. Yet, she forced a faint smile. "Sis, you've been withholding my living allowance this whole month," she said, feigning timidity. "So it's all about the living expenses." I immediately burst out laughing and pushed away her grubby hand. "Classmates, let me ask for your opinion," I said loudly. "Zoe Jung has been living under our roof since childhood under the pretense of being an orphan, eating our food and using our resources. I worked hard to get into university, while her college entrance exam scores couldn't even meet the minimum requirements for undergraduate programs. This is the first time I'm talking about this matter." Zoe Jong naturally wouldn't bring up such an embarrassing topic. Immediately, my roommates couldn't sit still. "Norah, she didn't even meet the undergraduate admission line. How did she get into our school? Although we're not a 985 university, we're still a 211 institution. Aren't we?" I sneered. My dad suggested she just attend any vocational college. But she refused and made a scene, threatening to kill herself. My mom said she could repeat the year. But she still refused and continued making a scene, threatening to kill herself. She blackmailed our whole family, saying she would die in our house, threatening to jump off a building, take rat poison, slit her wrists, or hang herself. Finally, as a last resort, my dad pulled some strings and spent money to get her into college. At that time, my mom said since she was already in college, there was no reason for her to keep living and eating at our house for free. She should learn to stand on her own feet. My dad was worried she wouldn't be able to support herself right after starting college. So, he continued to financially support her for another year. During this year's New Year celebration, my mom brought up the idea of her moving out, saying our family would no longer provide her with living expenses. But even so, my mom still gave her lucky money this year, including the school expenses. Now, she's coming to me with open hands, asking for money. I know that Zoe Jong has been asking my dad for money these past few days. But my dad has his own troubles to deal with. He embezzled company funds to speculate in stocks, suffering heavy losses. And when my mother found out, it led to a huge uproar. That wasn't all. The matter with Zoe Jong also came to light. My mother obtained the paternity test results between him and Zoe Jong and demanded a divorce. Under these circumstances, my father Jong Jun naturally had no time to spare for him. I know my mother has already hired a lawyer and filed for divorce. In short, one thing is certain. She is determined to end this marriage. In my past life at this time, I was lost in the trap of love. Infatuated with Miles Chu's handsome appearance under the nauseating stimulation of hormones, I was entangled in a passionate yet pitiful romance with him. Little did I know, it was a death trap. Jong Jun was crying pitifully to my mom while using me as an excuse. I am my mom's weakness. And with no other choice, the matter was eventually dropped. I don't know what exactly happened after my death that led to my rebirth. Miles Chu's rebirth and even my mom's return. Now I'm not sure. Are there others too in this life? After my mother and I exchanged information, and even after I revealed that Jong Jun had cheated on her when she was just pregnant, she naturally wouldn't tolerate it any longer. In fact, what my mother found most intolerable probably wasn't my father Jong Yeon's failed attempt at using company funds for stock trading. Rather, it was the fact that he had kept Zoe Jong under her nose for so many years. Thinking of this, a deep, indescribable anger welled up inside me. Because of Miles Chu. Because of Zoe Jong. And because of my scumbag father, Jong Jun. Hearing me say this, Zoe Jong's lips moved as if she wanted to say something. But she didn't know where to start. After holding it in for a long time, she angrily blurted out, "Norah Cheen. You're just making things difficult for me because Brother Chu likes me. If you're jealous, just say it outright. Is it really necessary to resort to such despicable means to make things difficult for me?" Everyone in the dorm knew that I had once pursued Miles Chu with all my might. So, when Zoe Jong said this, everyone couldn't help but turn their eyes toward me. I said loudly, "Zoe Jong. I did like Miles Chu before. But once I found out about your affair with him and that you even had an abortion, of course, I wouldn't like him anymore. But this has nothing to do with my mom cutting off your allowance. Our family has supported you for so many years. We didn't expect gratitude. But did we raise an ungrateful wretch instead? Our family isn't running a charity. Why should we spend real money supporting you every month?" Hearing this, several roommates in the dorm also nodded in agreement. But due to the conflict between us, they all remained silent after Zoe Jong's outburst. I stopped watching the show, tied it up, turned off the computer, and climbed into bed. Just as I closed the curtains, Xiaoyu from the opposite bed messaged me. "Norah, is what you said true?" "What?" I asked in surprise. "Are Zoe Jong and Miles Chu together?" she asked me. "Absolutely true," I said. "They've even had an abortion at a small clinic. Oh my God. One of my senior classmates likes him. I need to tell her right away so she can dodge this bullet. Hurry up, I said. Miles Chu was good-looking, knew how to dress well, and had excellent academic performance, always maintaining the persona of an unattainable flower. In my past life, I was utterly infatuated with him. In the end, I died a gruesome death. I also knew that apart from me, other girls at school had pursued him. But a scumbag is still a scumbag. While building up his public image, he had already gotten involved with Zoe Jong. He even said such disgusting things to me. What left me utterly speechless was that Zoe Jong is actually my father Jong Jan's illegitimate daughter. All these years, he's felt guilty for neglecting her. So behind my mother's and my back, he's been secretly giving her money. Over the past 2 years, Zoe Jong and Miles Chu have been involved in shady dealings. And all the money was actually swindled by Miles Chu and squandered. This is the information I recently uncovered by hiring a paparazzo. Zoe Jong transfers half of her monthly living expenses to Miles Chu as soon as she receives them. When the paparazzo told me, I couldn't believe it at first. What does Zoe Jong want? But when I think about it carefully, haven't I also been lover-struck before? Eagerly offering warmth to someone who didn't care. Desperately giving expensive gifts. All I can say is, this man is such a scumbag, deceiving people everywhere. Now I'm starting to wonder, has he also deceived other girls at the school? The very next day, I ran into the rich second-generation girl from the neighboring dorm. This girl was the epitome of a wealthy heirs. Always decked out in designer brands from head to toe. Despite her young age, her handbags started at Chanel and LV. And I once even saw her carrying a limited edition Hermes. Hey sweetie, got a minute to chat? The rich second-generation girl stopped me. So here's the thing. Is your cousin reliable? She got straight to the point. I nodded. Zoe Jong and I are cousins. As everyone knows, it's nothing unusual. In the past, even though I disliked Zoe Jong, we often went everywhere together. What do you mean? I asked in surprise. Just say it directly if you have something to tell me. She asked to borrow money from me, demanding 53,000 yuan. Right off the bat, said the wealthy second-generation girl. Almost in an instant, I realized that the money wasn't being borrowed by Zoe Jong, but by Miles Chu. He gave me an IOU for 530,000 and I made it clear if he doesn't repay within a month, I'll sue him. He's 2 years older than me. I'm a sophomore and he's a senior dealing with graduation projects and grad school applications. If I were to sue him now and it blew up, the consequences would be disastrous. Of course, I suspect repaying me is one thing, but he might still be trying to scam me. That's completely unreliable. I said bluntly, she lost both parents and has been living with our family for many years now. Firstly, she's grown older. And secondly, because of her improper conduct, my mother has stopped supporting her. After all, my home isn't a charity. Upon hearing this, the wealthy exclaimed, "Oh my goodness. I'm so glad I asked you first. Otherwise, lending her the money would have been like throwing it into the water." Wait, what does she need so much money for anyway? I've heard that 53,000 is enough to buy a house in a small town. I smiled and shrugged, saying, our family raised her for so many years, only to end up with an ungrateful wretch. My mom regrets it so much. Don't even mention it. At this point, I leaned in close to her ear and pretended to whisper mysteriously. Not only did she spend money on a man, but she also let him get her pregnant. She had an abortion last year. Really? The wealthy Aries, now thoroughly enjoying the juicy gossip, instantly ignited with burning curiosity, busily asking me, who's the man? Who else could it be? That damn Miles Chu. I said. Don't even mention it. It makes me sick just thinking about it. Holy, __. The rich second-generation girl exclaimed, unable to hold back her curse. This guy is too timing. Huh? Stringing you along while dating her? She said. Yeah. Tell me. Isn't it disgusting? I said. Thank goodness I found out. Otherwise, at this point, My face flushed with shame and I let out a long sigh. It's also my fault for being so lover-uck. Tell me, was the game not fun enough or the drama not binge-worthy? Why the hell did I fall for a scumbag? I fumed angrily, thinking back. I really want to slap my past self to death. It's terrifying. The wealthy second-generation girl nodded repeatedly and said, "Babe, stay away from them." I had the paparazzi keep a close eye on Miles Chu and Zoe Jong. After all, I died too tragically in my previous life. And I'm terrified they might pull some underhanded tricks again. At the same time, my mom and I kept each other updated. After my mother exposed my father, Jong Jan's secret of raising a love child, his infidelity became undeniable. My father admitted to his early affair. He knelt on the ground, kowtowing and apologizing, begging my mother not to divorce him. But my mother hired a highly skilled divorce lawyer, insisting that she would divorce him at all costs. At this point in the story, I can assure you that my mother has also been reborn. In her past life, my mother was also a hopeless romantic. It's said that back then, my maternal grandparents opposed her marriage to my father. My grandfather owned 2 factories and had a keen eye for investments, so he was quite wealthy. My father, Jong Jun, told my grandfather that he was willing to be a living-in son-in-law and would not interfere with the family business, all to win my mother's favor. My grandfather didn't mind this arrangement. But seeing that Jong Jun genuinely loved my mother and that her heart was entirely devoted to him, and considering his exceptionally handsome appearance, tall, elegant, and strikingly good-looking, he agreed to the marriage. Over the years, my father has been considerate and caring towards my mother. And in the eyes of others, they were a loving couple since childhood. I was doted on by my father and loved by my mother. Apart from disliking Zoe Jong, one could say there was nothing else I lacked. If my mother hadn't been reborn and returned, she probably wouldn't have been so resolute in asking for a divorce. Under these circumstances, Jong Jun was too preoccupied with his own troubles to even think about Zoe Jong's living expenses. He said to Zoe Jong, "Zoe, over the years, I've given you plenty of money. You should spend it wisely. Once I sort things out." Indeed, Jong Jun was exceptionally generous when giving Zoe Jong pocket money. Theoretically, Zoe Jong should have some savings. However, maintaining the image of an unattainable flower requires burning through cash. Zoe Jong has long been out of money. What's more, I heard she even got a credit card and overdrew some money. My mom absolutely forbids me from using things like credit cards. Those online lending platforms are also strictly prohibited. Whether she's used them or not, I don't know. Anyway, she's about to run out of food. As for me, I've also hired a lawyer and sent a legal notice to Miles Chu, urging him to repay the debt as soon as possible, or else we'll proceed with legal action. During the Qingming festival, the school will have a 3-day holiday. And we're all planning to go home to pay respects to our ancestors and have some fun. My dad, Jong Jun, came to the school. He had Zoe Jong arrange a meeting with me. Feeling wary, I made all necessary preparations in advance and arranged to meet them at a restaurant I was familiar with. When I arrived, Zoe Jong, Miles Chu, and my father, Jong Jun, were all there. And they had already ordered a table full of dishes. "Norah is here." My father pretended nothing had happened and cheerfully greeted me. This was the first time I'd seen him since being reborn. I don't know why, but my heart ached terribly. In my mind, he had always been a good father. Gentle, kind, and endlessly patient. When I was little, he held my hand, teaching me how to write and draw. He took me out to play, visiting various amusement parks. He remembered every birthday of mine, knew my preferences, what I liked to eat, and what I avoided. Yet, in the end, it was also him who plotted to take my life, devising a deadly scheme. I really want to ask him, am I not his own daughter? Why? I took a deep breath, suppressing the chaotic emotions in my heart, pretending nothing had happened, and greeted him with a smile. "Dad. Why did you come to school?" "Just came to see you." he said with a smile. My gaze fell on his face. In fact, he had aged, too. His eyelids were beginning to droop. And his belly had grown thick with fat. Deep wrinkles have appeared on the forehead. Past or present. I can't figure out what is after. The restaurant's food and drinks have already been served. I ate slowly, listening to Zoe Jong heatishly joking with Jong Jun. In the past, I would have jumped in to speak as if the competition for favor was etched into our DNA since childhood. I often resented him for splitting what should have been undivided paternal love in half. But today, I just watched in silence. Miles Chu tried several times to talk to me. But I didn't even lift my eyelids. Norah, have some shrimp? Miles Chu placed a large shrimp in my bowl and asked. Want me to peel it for you? I heavily tapped Miles Chu's wrist with my chopsticks. Miles Chu, stay away from me. You disgust me. As I spoke, I had already unwrapped another pair of chopsticks. Miles Chu's expression turned very unpleasant. Jong Jun glanced at me, then at Zoe Jong and Miles Chu, and let out a soft sigh. Norah, I heard from Zoe that you've had quite a few conflicts with Zoe and Miles recently. I came here this time because there's a major matter I need to discuss with you, Jong Jun said. I looked up at him and asked. What major matter? Jong Jun pondered for a moment before saying, you and Zoe grew up together and share a deep bond. Now that she's sick, she needs cord blood. I know you like Miles, so I thought I let out a soft scoff and said, Dad, you can't possibly not know how much I've hated Zoe Jong since childhood. Right? I've told you many times. I don't like her. It's just your wishful thinking that we sisters would be close. What illness does she have? Will she die? God has truly opened his eyes. Zhang Yan's face instantly turned extremely unpleasant. Flushing red. After a long pause, he stammered. Norah, how have you become like this? I sneered and said. That's just how I am. Besides, she's sick. What are you telling me for? I'm not a doctor. If you like her and want to treat her, that's your business. Beside us, Miles Chu hurriedly interjected. Norah, stop making a scene. I know it's my fault for neglecting you. And I understand you're upset. But you can't take it out on Zoe and your dad. Norah, Uncle Jong's meaning is that he'll make the decision. We'll get married. You'll have a baby, and that way we'll have the umbilical cord blood to save Zoe. It's a perfect solution. At this point, Miles Chu paused before adding. Norah, don't worry. I'll treat you well. __. I snapped directly. Miles Chu, you rotten excuse of a man. Shut your mouth. Why should having my child be the way to save her? There are so many women giving birth in the hospital every day. Why not just buy one? Jong Jun hurriedly said. Norah, Zoe is also Dad's child. You are sisters by blood. Dad had no choice. Zoe's mother passed away early. I sprang to my feet in an instant, pointing at him and demanding. So, you cheated. Zhang Yan's face turned red with embarrassment. I picked up a bowl of braised pork from the dining table and dumped it directly onto Zoe Jong's head. Zoe Jong burst into tears with a loud wail. Jong Jun's heart ached unbearably. He hurriedly wrapped his arms around her, frantically wiping her with tissues. Jong Jun first comforted Zoe Jong and told her to go wash up in the bathroom. The atmosphere at the dining table carried a sense of oppression. Jong Jun lit a cigarette, watching Zoe Jong emerge from the bathroom with damp hair and tear-streaked cheeks before finally speaking. Norah, how did you end up like this? You used to get along so well with Zoe. He continued saying. I understand that you can't immediately accept Zoe as your biological sister. And it's understandable that you hold resentment toward Dad in your heart. I sat down again and poured myself a glass of cola. I was experiencing low blood sugar. And at that moment, I was also feeling very unwell. I needed some sugar to suppress the restless impulses within me. I even had the terrifying thought of grabbing a knife and stabbing these people to death. I have repeatedly warned myself. Having been given a second chance at life, I must cherish it and stay away from toxic men. I will live my life well. You apologized to Zoe Jong said to me. Why? I put down the cola glass and asked. Why should I apologize to a damn bastard? Yu Jong could no longer maintain his superficial calm. He sprang up in an instant, pointed at me, and said with a trembling voice, Norah, how could you say such a thing? Zoe is my child. He repeated this to me, emphasizing it. So, she's a bastard then, I said coldly. From her age, it's clear you cheated when my mother was just pregnant with me. I stood up holding the canvas bag I always carried and said, Dad, this is the last time I'll call you that. I despise Zoe Jong and I hate you too. From now on, your affairs have nothing to do with me. With that, I was ready to leave. Miles Chu stopped me, frowning as he said, Norah, don't be unreasonable. Zoe is really sick. It's life-threatening. We all know it's hard for you to accept that she's your biological sister right now. But your father had no choice. I raised an eyebrow and asked, what do you mean? No choice? Did that shameless mother of Zoe Jong rape him? Miles Chu angrily said, Norah Cheen, how can you be so unreasonable? Don't you have any damn sense about what your surname should be? Doesn't your father as a man need to carry on the family line? If it weren't for your mother being so domineering and insisting on fighting for the right to the surname, would he have to go through this? Zoe doesn't have to live under someone else's roof either. I was so angry I laughed. This time I couldn't even be bothered to argue. We're not on the same wavelength. There's just no way to communicate. Perhaps because I stayed silent. Miles Chu got carried away with his own imagination, thinking he had convinced me, and continued talking to himself. Norah, I know you like me. You're just jealous that I favor Zoe a bit more. But Zoe is really pitiful. Your dad brought the household register. We'll go get our marriage certificate this afternoon. Hurry up. Have a baby and Zoe will be saved. At this point, he paused and added, don't worry. I will love you well. Damn it, I curse it outright. Miles Chu, can't you understand human language? I've told you so many times. I originally liked you because you were unattainable. But now you're tainted. You've stuck it in dog, __, and you think I'd still like you. Don't flatter yourself. Pay back the money you owe me immediately or I'll sue you without hesitation and demand court enforcement. As for Zoe Jong, good riddance. If some man wants to continue his family line, he'd better hurry up and divorce my mom while he's still young. After that, maybe he can find another woman to bear him a son. Why bother using such a roundabout way to save this useless daughter? With that, I turned and walked away. Zoe Jong's pale little face was strewn with tears as she grabbed my hand and cried, Sister, can't you just save me? I shook off her hand. Don't call me sister. I really despise you. I've hated you since we were kids. Such a hypocritical, __. Stop pretending to be pitiful. Calm as a, __. And revenge feels so damn good. With that, I walked away without looking back, leaving the three of them staring at each other in shock. During the Qingming holiday, I went home to see my mother after being reborn. This was also the first time I saw her in my previous life when I was giving birth. Miles Chu took the opportunity to steal my phone. At that time, my mother was far away abroad. Back then, in my heart, my father and Miles Chu were the people I trusted the most. And I never suspected anything else. Not until I nearly died on the operating table did I understand their heartless cruelty. The wickedness of human nature. They may lack the courage to wield a blade, but they can exploit the bonds of blood and kinship to inflict the cruelest harm on those closest to them. Looking at my mother again felt like a lifetime had passed. I held her and cried uncontrollably. On Qingming Festival, my mother took me to pay respects to our ancestors, visiting the graves of my maternal grandparents, placing green rice cakes and fresh flowers as offerings. My mother also cried. She told me that a man opposed by one's parents is indeed not worth marrying. I originally thought Jong was an honest man. In his youth, he was handsome, gentle, and considerate. Who would have thought that hidden deep in his bones At the very bottom of his heart was a demon's lair that devours people without spitting out their bones. Mom? Will he agree to the divorce? This is what worries me the most. Yes. My mother took a deep breath, wiped the tear stains from her face, and regained her usual composure. He embezzled company funds for stock trading. And the evidence is irrefutable. If he doesn't leave, I'll have him put away. At this point, she paused, gritted her teeth, and said, Norah, don't take the civil service exam. Only then did I suddenly snap back to reality. No matter what, he's still my father. Ingrained deep in my blood. Impossible to sever. And just like that, I suddenly understood. In his previous life, how did he control my mother? I suddenly laughed. My smile as bright as the spring sunshine. Mom, I'm going to inherit your business in the future. Why would I take the civil service exam? Hearing this, my mother seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and smiled radiantly. I'm sorry, Norah, she said. Mom, you don't have to apologize to me. I told my mom that Zoe Jong is sick. Heard it might be leukemia or possibly loose. As for the exact diagnosis, Jong Jun didn't explain it clearly to me. And I don't really understand either. But they need my child's umbilical cord blood. I also told my mom about Jong Jun bringing Miles Chu to see me. Norah, don't be foolish. You mustn't soften and agree to it. My mother said seriously. Standing before my grandparents' tombstones, I whispered softly. I wish they were dead. My voice drifts in the warm breeze, devoid of any warmth or emotional fluctuation. It turns out that when hatred reaches its extreme, the heart becomes as steady as a rock. It's worth mentioning that Jong Jun didn't visit the graves with my mother this Qingming festival. Perhaps they've had a falling out. Or maybe my mother already knows. So, he brazenly took Zoe Jong back to his hometown to worship his ancestors after the Qingming festival. When I returned to school, Zoe Jong also came back. But the little white flower's energy and spirit weren't very good. She said she wanted to talk to me. So we arranged to meet at the school's cafe. She ordered the coffee I usually drink with a worn canvas bag placed to the side. Norah, have some coffee. I didn't touch it. It's not dirty, Zoe Jong said. I nodded and asked her. What do you want to talk about? Just say it directly. Don't even mention things like asking me to find a man to have a child to save your life. You know, I've hated you since we were kids. Zoe Jong nodded, smiling with a desolate expression. I know, and I don't want to be disliked by you either. But what choice do I have? At first, I really thought you were my cousin. I envied you for having money, parents who loved you, and grandparents. While I only had my mother. My mother is mentally unstable, and the neighbors all say she's not a good woman. Later, as I gradually grew up, I came to realize that the man I had always called uncle was actually my father. When I was young, I thought I could rely on my looks to live off others. Having nothing to your name, yet still wanting children to carry on the family line. Where in the world does such a good deal exist? Don't you think so? I shook my head, still not drinking the coffee she had ordered for me. Instead, I got myself a cup, took a big gulp, and then said, Why are you telling me all this now? Trying to win my sympathy. Zoe Jong. It's too late. Zoe Jong shook her head, looking at the other cup of coffee I had ordered, and then said he agreed to divorce your mother. You were right about one thing. He still has the ability to have children. So he decided to find a woman to bear him a healthy, chubby son. During this trip back to honor our ancestors, he told me not to blame him. He gave me 10,000 yuan, saying he sold a watch for it and told me to eat well, drink well, and enjoy what's left of my life. He said he had tried his best. My lips moved, but I found myself at a loss for words. Or perhaps, should I comfort her? Zoe Jong thought for a moment before saying. He even told me that my very existence was a mistake. And now my death would be setting things right. He said he regretted having me. Without me, now his family would be harmonious and happy. With his lovely and caring daughter, he would have a strong, financially capable wife. He would only need to take the kids out for fun. Occasionally go fishing. Binge watch shows. Read books. And tend to flowers, living the leisurely life of a wealthy man. But my existence has destroyed everything for him. Zoe Jong took a big gulp of coffee, looked up at me, and asked, "What exactly did I do wrong?" After thinking about this question for a moment, I finally said, "When we were kids, I hated you because you were fake. Because of your jealousy. Taking advantage of his favoritism toward you. You recklessly destroyed everything of mine. The airplane model I spent 3 days making. You crushed it underfoot without a second thought. The trophy I won in the essay competition. You pretended it was an accident when you smashed it. You scribbled on my homework. Tore up my certificates. Threw mud on my bed. And spat on it. In middle school, you falsely accused me of puppy love, almost getting me expelled. In high school, if you liked Miles Chu, you should have told me clearly instead of sleeping with him while passing love letters between us." At this point, I frowned and asked, "Have you ever reflected on your own actions? You can't choose your birth. But can't you at least be an upright person? Don't you realize how detestable all your actions are?" Zoe Jong closed her eyes as tears streamed down her face. "Sister, it's already too late for words now. You're right. I couldn't choose my birth. But the path of life. I chose it myself. I don't blame you for not helping when I was in desperate need. But I hate him." I was stunned for a moment. Hate him. Jong Jun or Miles Chu? Miles Chu is nothing but a scammer. A gold-digging man. She said through gritted teeth. My father has no money left. Or even if he still has some, he's saving it to marry and have children. He's hoping for a healthy son to carry on the family line. I need medical treatment. So, I hope Miles Chu will return the money to me. But him? Do you know what he said? At that very moment, a thought struck me. And I suddenly understood. Jong Jun had many flaws. But he also had one advantage. He was handsome. Both Zoe Jang and I successfully inherited his good looks. Zoe Jang is beautiful. I remember when we first started our freshman year. Zoe Jang and I walked into the dormitory together. My bunkmate Xiaoyu once exclaimed, "What a pair of beauties." In my ear, Zoe Jong's voice came through. Not only is he unwilling to pay me back a single cent, but he also told me to take out an online loan. He blames me for seducing him. At this point, Zoe Jong let out a sickly, deranged laugh. He said, "If it weren't for me, he would have definitely been with you long ago." He said, "Any man would choose you over me." He blames me for climbing into his bed. Blames me for ruining his untouchable, pristine image. I'm sorry I dirt him. Making you despise him. He said, "Since I don't have much time left anyway, I might as well use my limited life to fulfill his wishes." I stammered and asked, "He told you to take out a nude loan. Is that how it was?" I know Miles Chu is heartless and ungrateful. In his previous life, he could whisper sweet nothings to me while plotting to take my life in this life. When Zoe Jung can no longer offer him any help and has instead become a burden to him, Miles Chu will undoubtedly try every means to exploit and squeeze the last bit of value from her. But using someone terminally ill to take out a nude loan still shatters my understanding of morality. Zoe Jong nodded slightly and said, "Norin, it's only now that I've truly seen their true colors. You might not believe it. But recently I had a dream where I saw you were pregnant to save me. You and Miles Chu secretly got married. While you were pregnant, he and Jong Jun kept coaxing you to eat highly nourishing food every day. I know what they're going to do. But I just watched later. When your fetus was too large for a natural birth and required a C-section, they refused to sign the consent form and you died. Even though I had the umbilical cord blood, I still died on the operating table. Your mother bribed the doctors and my death was just as tragic." I stared at her blankly as if looking at a stranger. It turns out that it wasn't just me, my mom, and Miles Chu who were reborn. I asked you here today to tell you that I've also reported to the police. Zoe Jong stood up holding her worn canvas bag and said, "I'm going to die. But that bastard must die 2. If it weren't for him lingering between you and me, how could we have come to this? I can't let him live to harm you or anyone else again. Only when standing between life and death can one see through the vanity of the world. I was no exception. Blinded by love in my past life. I died in humiliation during my youth. Zoe Jong is the same. In both her past and present lives. She couldn't escape the fate of death. I don't know when she was reborn. Whether it was just a few days ago or around the same time as me. Amid the bustling world. Having lived 2 lives. She only ever had one springtime of youth. And she, who grew up amidst lies and deceit. When the truth was finally revealed. If she wanted to turn back, where would she even find the time? The little white flower moved swiftly. First by tallying all the money she had given to Miles Chu over the years. Then consult a lawyer. After that, she followed my lead and directly reported it to the police. It was straightforward. She also accused Miles Chu of fraud, claiming that under the guise of a romantic relationship, he deceived her into making large transfers to him, borrowing money from her, and manipulating her into buying luxury goods for him through PUA tactics. It was the same officer who handled my case before. Upon hearing this, filled with indignation, they summoned Miles Chu once again. This time, Miles Chu had also become more cautious. He firmly disagreed with Zoe Jong's claims, insisting that they had indeed been in a romantic relationship. Zoe Jong had consulted a lawyer. So she presented evidence of Miles Chu pursuing her. She argued that even if they had been in a relationship before, now that the man had shifted his affections elsewhere, he should return the expensive items purchased for him by the woman during their relationship, as well as any transferred funds or loans. To my surprise, Zoe Jong was scammed for an even larger amount than me. A staggering 880 yuan. After finding out from the paparazzi, I couldn't help but smack my forehead in disbelief. That scumbag father of mine really does do on his illegitimate daughter. After all, he was incredibly generous with the money. Take a look. Unlike me, Zoe Jong has always been a manipulative and hypocritical person. So, at the police station, she immediately knelt down before the officers, crying and pleading with tears in her eyes. "Officer, I really have no choice. I have a terminal illness and need medical treatment. My father also went bankrupt." At the most critical moment, she pulled out a crumpled medical record from her worn-out canvas bag. "Officer, I know I don't have much time left to live. But I'm still young. I'm really scared. I hope I can take the money and go to a big hospital for treatment. Please. I beg you to help me. And also." At this point, Zoe Jong looked up, her gaze icy and chilling as she stared at Miles Chu, who had been summoned by the police. I asked Miles Chu for money. But he actually said, "Since you're going to die anyway, why not do me a favor before you go and take out a nude loan for me?" Zoe Jong's move earned her a wave of sympathy. The police ordered Miles Chu to repay all of Zoe Jong's debts within a week. At this point in the unfolding events, Miles Chu was actually dumbfounded. After all, he was also a reincarnated individual. And in his mind, the plot shouldn't have taken this turn. On my side, he owes 530,000. And Zoe Jong is demanding 880. Zoe Jong told him right after leaving the police station. "Miles Chu, I'm different from Norah. She has time to wait slowly to drag things out. In fact, whether you give her that money or not means nothing to her. She just doesn't want you to have an easy time. But I don't have time to wait. You better hand over the money. Honestly. Or else I won't mind going down with you. After all, I've liked you for so long on the road to the underworld. I don't want to walk alone." Miles Chu was furious and shouted, "Zoe Jong, have you gone mad? Who gave you the courage to call the police? Let me tell you." Zoe Jong didn't wait for him to finish and asked, "What are you telling me?" Miles Chu angrily said, "If it weren't for you shamelessly climbing into my bed, Norah and I would have had a proper relationship. I rejected her because of you. And now you dare to call the police and demand money from me. What do you need money for? You're about to die. Are you planning to take it to hell with you? Zoe Jong wasn't angry either. She smiled faintly, her tone laced with mockery and scorn, saying, Miles Chu, I want to take you to hell with me. With that, she turned and walked away. After leaving the police station, she recounted the entire incident to me in detail. I just watched without replying to her. But I knew that due to Zoe Jong's betrayal, Miles Chu's financial situation had worsened even more. Finding a way to get money became a major problem. I don't know what she was thinking, but he set his sights on me again. Perhaps it's because my family is wealthy. Or perhaps it's because I was once naive and innocent, allowing him to deceive and humiliate me. Perhaps in my past life, I was shamed to death by his deceit. Thus, he used the most affectionate words to craft the most repulsive messages to send to me. He said he wanted my forgiveness, claiming he was entirely deceived by Zoe Jong. Norah, you really shouldn't blame me. If Zoe Jong hadn't used underhanded means to get into my bed and deliberately slandered you, why would I have rejected you? Norah, let's be together. We are truly a match made in heaven. I can swear that in this lifetime, I will only love you. Norah, whether you believe it or not. I need to tell you something, Norah. Reply to my message. This matter concerns both our futures. It's truly important. After some deliberation, I replied to him. Miles Chu, my future won't include you. Wake up. Norah, can we meet? I'll be waiting at the cafe near the school. Norah, whether you believe it or not, I'm telling you honestly. I am a reborn person. I smiled. Of course, I believed it. So, I instructed the paparazzi and prepared everything before heading to the cafe. Having lived a second life, I was extremely cautious. Nothing is more important than life itself. In the small corner of the cafe, the lack of holiday crowds made it feel rather deserted. Only the rich aroma of coffee and the slanting rays of the setting sun filtered through the window, casting layers of golden hues, shimmering and radiant. I sat down across from Miles Chu and asked with a smile. Classmate Chu, the 1-month deadline is almost up. When can you repay me the money? Otherwise, I'll have to start the legal proceedings. I didn't push him to the brink from the very start. I wanted him to experience what it's like to be a frog slowly boiled in warm water. In my past life, I didn't die immediately. My death was drawn out amidst repeated hopes and repeated despair. I ultimately died unwillingly, filled with pain and humiliation in this life. I'll make sure he gets a taste of it. 2. This illusion of a glimmer of hope while in reality stepping deeper into the abyss just like a drowning person clutching at a straw believing it to be their savior. In my past life when I was on the operating table I simply couldn't believe that my father who had doted on me since childhood and my loving husband would turn out to be the executioners who wanted my life. Miles Chu was no longer his usual composed and steady self. In fact, he seemed somewhat agitated and said, Norah, don't bring up money every time you see me. Is money all that's left between us? Besides the money you owe me? What else is there between us? I retorted. Miles Chu hurriedly said, Norah, can we talk properly? I sneered. Miles Chu, if it weren't for the money you owe me, even saying one more word to you would disgust me. Miles Chu quickly responded. Norah, whether you believe me or not, I'm telling you I'm a reincarnator. Has God gone blind? I sneered. Norah, in our past life, you married me and we even had a child together. A son. Miles Chu smiled with infatuation, emphasizing that it was a boy. It suddenly dawned on me that he and my father, Jong Jun, had something in common. And for good reason. Both were overflowing with male chauvinism. The ultimate members of the Edinburgh Club. Nothing but a breed with inferior bloodline. Yet deluded enough to think their family has a throne to inherit. I've come to realize that in our past life, Miles Chu didn't truly love Zoe Jong. It was just his male chauvinism at play. He believed that whether it was me or Zoe Jong, we should dutifully worship him. All our wealth should be at his disposal for indulgence and pleasure. Even our very selves included. In his mind, we are merely his possessions. I said mockingly. I really hate children just as much as I hate you. Norah. How can you say that? That's our child. Miles Chu said with re-ened eyes. His voice low. I shook my head visibly impatient. And said bluntly, enough. Miles Chu. Give me the money. Transfer all cash. Just hurry up. How could I possibly have a child with you? Don't daydream like a toad waiting for a pie in the sky. Miles Chu was also growing impatient. He waved his hand and said, Norah. Let me finish. Finish and then return my money. I must have been cursed for 8 lifetimes. Lending money without a penny of interest. Only to listen to some beastly creature spout nonsense. I'll curse directly. Using the most offensive language possible. Norah, how have you become so unreasonable, vulgar, and foolish? Miles Chu frowned and said. You weren't like this before. I didn't know you were a beast before. I said. Can you just listen to me properly? Miles Chu's face turned red with anger as he stood up and pointed at me. I just want you to pay me back. I also stood up and said loudly. You owe me money and refuse to pay. And you even fantasize about me. Me scolding you is already lenient. I've really met a damn lunatic. Making up excuses about past lives and present lives. Is fantasizing fun for you? Trash is just trash. Although the cafe was sparsely populated, there were still people around. Miles Chu has always been very concerned about face and he immediately couldn't hold it in. His expression turning quite unpleasant. In fact, based on my understanding of him, if he didn't have a favor to ask of me, he would have stormed out immediately. Norah. I'm sorry. It's my fault. After about 2 or 3 minutes, he lowered his stance and said softly, Don't be like this. As he spoke, he was the first to sit down. What I told you is all true. I really am a reincarnated person. In my past life, we got married. I accepted your confession and you gave me gifts. We went to a hotel together. We got our marriage certificate after you had a child. Hearing her ramble on to this point, I asked, Did we have a wedding banquet? Miles Chu was stunned for a moment before replying. Of course not. Your father hopes you can give birth to the child and use the umbilical cord blood to save her. Your father still cares deeply about her. Norah. We can ignore it. Let's just be together. And I promise this time I will treat you right. I caught the keyword and asked, So? In your past life, you didn't treat me well? No, Miles Chu said urgently. I did like you. It was him, Jong Jun, who made me do it. He said that only by killing you could Zoe inherit the Cheen family's fortune. At this point, Miles Chu's face turned pale. Do you know, Norah? He asked tentatively. I sneered. I know nothing except that you disgust me to the point of nausea. Calling yourself an unattainable flower. What a joke. One word. Return my money immediately or I'll start legal proceedings. Let's see how you'll keep your graduate recommendation then, or whether you can graduate smoothly becomes an unknown. Miles Chu angrily said Norah Cheen. Are you really going to take things this far? I replied Miles Chu. Don't you have any idea of what you've done? If I'm being extreme, wasn't your past life even more extreme? With that, I stood up, grabbed my bag, and left. Miles Chu still wanted to pester me. But just at that moment, Zoe Jong arrived. The fragile little white flower grabbed hold of Miles Chu. Brother Chu, please give me back my money. Zoe Jong pleaded tearfully. I seized the opportunity to walk away. Today, Miles Chu asked to meet me. So, I sent a message to Zoe Jong. When Miles Chu saw Zoe Jong, his ferocious side was immediately revealed. He pushed her away viciously, cursing, Zoe Jong. You're about to die. What do you need money for? If it weren't for your shameless seduction, why would Norah and I be in conflict? Zoe Jong, acting as if deranged, grabbed his clothes, lunged at him to scratch and bite, screaming, Give me back my money. The people in the cafe quickly stepped forward to intervene. But they couldn't stop Zoe Jong's frenzied outburst as she lunged at Miles Chu, hitting and biting him. She alternated between kneeling, kowtowing, and striking him in short. She insisted it was her life-saving money and demanded Miles Chu return it to her. She tearfully told the crowd that she was suffering from a terminal illness. But the money that could save her life had been stolen by Miles Chu. She knelt on the ground, took out the medical records issued by the hospital from her bag and held them up in her hand. Seeing this, the crowd all scolded Miles Chu, urging him to quickly return the life-saving money to the poor girl. As I saw more and more people gathering, I took out a small megaphone from my bag and put it on. He loudly declared, "He is the unattainable flower of our school, Miles Chu, under the pretense of dating. He has been deceiving girls out of their money and valuables. He scammed me out of 530,000 yuan. And I've reported it to the police." As I spoke, I also pulled out from my bag a debt certificate stamped with the official seal of a certain authoritative institution. I came to find him today to demand that he repay me the money. I don't know if he's been deceiving other sisters. I originally thought there wouldn't be any other sisters. But what I never expected was that a stylishly dressed girl stepped forward and gave Miles Chu a hard slap. "Miles Chu, you'd better explain this to me clearly." Miles Chu covered his swollen, bruised face, looking at the girl. But he didn't dare to speak a word. This farce ended with someone calling the police once again. Miles Chu was taken to the police station again. Zoe Jong cried and pleaded with the officers to intervene, demanding that Miles Chu returned the money to her. Under pressure, Miles Chu borrowed an online loan from a minute program to scrape together 30,000 yuan for Zoe Jong, promising to give her the remaining money within a week that night. The hashtag male college student scams millions in cash and valuables under the guise of a romantic relationship skyrocketed to the top of trending searches. Miles Chu didn't know that I had specifically hired a somewhat famous internet celebrity to blend into the crowd and start a live broadcast when Zoe Jong passed by. In no time, the internet was flooded with a wave of condemnation. Is there really a human beneath that skin of his? They say no spirits are allowed after the founding of the nation. So, how did he end up looking like a human but acting like a beast? The school should expel him. No question about it. To be honest, I could overlook other things. After all, if the girl hadn't been so loveruk, she wouldn't have fallen for his manipulation. But what I absolutely cannot tolerate is that he swindled her out of her life-saving money. It's equivalent to murder. He must pay back the money immediately. Do you have an account? Miss? I don't have much money, but I can donate a small amount to help you with your medical expenses. Many people have expressed their willingness to donate to Zoe Jong. I thought that in this situation, Zoe Jong would go live to cry and beg for donations. And indeed, she did go live. But she disabled all tipping channels. She only streamed to expose Miles Chu. I don't need donations in front of the live audience. The delicatelle-looking girl, her small face, pale and free of makeup, yet still strikingly beautiful, won herself a wave of new fans. All I want is for him to pay me back. It must be said that Zoe Jong has a ruthless streak deep down. Perhaps it's because she learned to disguise herself from a young age to endure silently and had already committed many misdeeds as a child. She understands better than the average person how to effectively stir up sympathy and hatred among the crowd. She began to chase after Miles Chu with her cracked phone screen. The police told her to give Miles Chu a week to raise the funds. But she wouldn't listen at all. She harassed Miles Chu day and night whenever she caught him. Whether it was in the boys' dormitory or during the break between classes. As long as she caught Miles Chu, she would pounce on him demanding money. She even got smarter and bought a small megaphone. Every time her tearful voice accused Miles Chu of swindling her life-saving money, it resounded clearly in every corner. Miles Chu was ostracized by everyone at school. His former roommates threw all his belongings out without hesitation. They told him that knowing him was a disgrace to them as men. Even some guys said, "Miles Chu, you have no shame." But we still do. My girlfriend wants to break up with me just because I know you. Miles Chu, I'm telling you, if my girlfriend dumps me, I'll make sure you pay for it. Acting like a big shot all the time. But turns out you've been scamming money from girls. How dare you live in this world with no shame? The online criticism of you wasn't wrong. I suspect I've been sharing a dorm with an animal for 4 years and so on. In the live stream, I saw Miles Chu standing at the entrance of the male dormitory holding his bedding and luggage. When Zoe Jong once again barged into Miles Chu's class without regard. She didn't just intrude. She also brought a kitchen knife with her. She said to Miles Chu, "Either pay back the money or today we'll perish together." Looking at the gleaming cold blade of the kitchen knife with Zoe Jong diagnosed with a terminal illness, everyone was convinced she would definitely kill Miles Chu. Fearing they might be implicated, the crowd demanded the school expel Miles Chu, a student with such corrupt morals. After all, he has already severely affected others' studies and rest. Of course, the school would not punish Zoe Jong under such circumstances. A critically ill patient on the verge of death. She didn't do anything wrong. She was merely reclaiming the money that rightfully belonged to her from a scumbag. In late spring and early summer, the school first revoked Miles Chu's guaranteed graduate admission spot. Initially, the school planned to retain Miles Chu's student status, allowing him to handle his personal matters first. Given his outstanding academic performance to become the school's most admired figure first and foremost. His jade-like appearance was indeed impressive enough to stand out. Secondly, he maintained the persona of a top student. Otherwise, my parents wouldn't have hired him to tutor me and Zoe Jang in the first place. There would be no such romantic entanglements. However, this proposal was opposed by many at the school. No matter how good the grades, moral corruption ultimately leads to becoming a high IQ criminal. Thus, with a single document, the school expelled Miles Chu. At this point, Miles Chu was truly dumbfounded. He was utterly shocked. As a reincarnated individual, he believed himself to be the world's favorite. After all, those who could be reborn were undoubtedly the protagonists of this world. All the trials before him were merely the heavens bestowing great responsibilities upon him, tempering his will and testing his endurance. Nothing more than the tribulations of mortal existence. He really doesn't care, however. Not only did the school revoke his guaranteed graduate admission spot, but they also expelled him. Which essentially means he only has a high school diploma in reality. What can he do? Is he supposed to go deliver takeout from what he knew? Whenever a male protagonist in a novel was at his wit's end, he would inevitably encounter a beautiful, wealthy, and devoted woman who would be utterly devoted to him. He possessed striking looks, outstanding academic achievements, and now he was at his wit's end. One day after school, he stopped me by the grove near the campus. "What do you want?" I frowned and asked. "Miles Chu, you've been expelled from school. How did you sneak in? What do you want from me? Give me back my money." Miles Chu looked impatient and shouted angrily. "Norah Cheen, what else is left in your eyes besides money?" I was a bit surprised. How does this scumbag who has fallen to such a state still have the courage to come to my school looking for me? And he dares to yell at me. Who gave him the courage? Seeing that I remained silent, Miles Chu continued on his own. "Norah, I know you don't believe me, but I truly am a reincarnator. You must understand. To be reborn among countless people, I must be the darling of the heavenly way. I will become one of the key protagonists of this world. I'm giving you another chance now. Get rid of Zoe Jong. Norah Cheen. Don't be ungrateful. You should know that you and your family's existence must serve to help me achieve fame and success. Otherwise, your entire family has no value. As my wife, Miles Chu, you should know your place. Be more tolerant, more understanding, and more sensible. Which successful man doesn't have a few women by his side? Besides, Zoe Jong is your sister." I listened quietly until he finished, then couldn't help but laugh. Just how inflated must his male chauvinist confidence be to make such remarks? I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. Then, before he could react, I backhanded him with another stinging blow. "The darling of the heavens. The future protagonist," I said with a laugh. "Consider this my greeting. Miles Chu. You're nothing but trash that fell into a cesspit, loathed by man and despised by ghosts. Miles Chu roared. Norah Cheen. Can't you understand human language? I've said so much to you. Can't you just think it over properly? I imitated Zoe Jong, lunging forward and scratching at his face while shouting. Miles Chu. Give me back my money. At the same time, I yelled loudly. Classmates. Help me. In an instant, many students from the school rushed over. Seizing the opportunity, I fiercely scratched Miles Chu's face several times. In this life and the next, if I don't personally beat him up, I won't be able to vent my hatred. Covering my face, I cried out. Classmates. Not only did Miles Chu refuse to pay me back, but he also harassed me. Hit him. Hit him. Most of the boys in the school were full of youthful vigor and a strong sense of justice. Upon hearing this, they all shouted angrily, ready to beat up Miles Chu. That scumbag said he's a reincarnated person, one of the protagonists of this world, and told me to be more generous and spend money to support his women. Covering my face and crying, I told Miles Chu's crazy words to many students at school, whether I knew them or not. Amidst a chorus of scolding and curses, Miles Chu ran away in disgrace, his face covered in bruises. Even after all that, he still had the nerve to text me. Norah, are you an idiot? The opportunity is right in front of you, and you don't even know how to cherish it. I smiled and replied directly. Miles Chu. The heavens let you be reborn just so you could die miserably all over again. I never expected that because of this message I would be summoned by the police. It happened half a month later. The body of Miles Chu was discovered in an abandoned factory outside the city, naked with his genitals removed and covered in bite marks from stray dogs. A scavenger found his body and reported it to the police. A major homicide case. My last message. The final message from Miles Chu's WeChat. Naturally, I was summoned. The police questioned me. During that period, I was at school and there were classmates, teachers, and others who could testify for me. Finally, the police asked me why I had cursed Miles Chu. I smiled bitterly. Officer, under the pretense of a romantic relationship, he not only deceived my feelings, but also swindled me out of 530,000 yuan. Still, there's absolutely no way he'll pay it back. Reporting to the police or filing a lawsuit. Nothing works against this deadbeat. And that's not all. He keeps harassing me at school again and again. He claims to be a reincarnated soul, the darling of Providence, one of the main characters in the future world. Let me be sensible and hand over the family's money for him to squander. I fought with him that day. I really couldn't take it anymore. The wounds on his face might have been from me scratching him. I answered truthfully. That day, I deliberately made a big scene and many people at the school can testify to it. When I left the police station, the officers were preparing to arrest Zoe Jong, because all the evidence pointed to Zoe Jong killing Miles Chu. But just as the police were about to arrest her, she climbed to the top of a high-rise and began her final live broadcast. One that would end in death. The little white flower shattered even more. This time she wore makeup, adorned herself with jewelry, and dressed in her favorite princess gown. In the night breeze, she looked as beautiful as a fairy tale princess. The gimmick of a live broadcast about death is still quite sensational. When she was tearing into Miles Chu, she had already gained a massive wave of fans. At this moment, the live stream went viral, quickly reaching a staggering number of 1 million viewers. Many people were trying to persuade her. Miss, don't do anything foolish. Turn on the tipping feature, and I'll send you money to see a doctor. That's right. It's just money, isn't it? Let's pull our resources. Are we really afraid we can't come up with a few hundred? 000? Pretty girl, don't cry. I'm a rich second-generation heir with money. Give me your account and I'll transfer funds to you. Zoe Jong faced the live stream, tears streaming down her face. Laughing, she said. My sister told me that while we can't choose how we're born, how we live our lives is something everyone can choose. Just like I couldn't choose my birth, but I can choose the way I die. To waste away under the torment of illness, slowly dying, or to live with passion, choosing the day of my death. I have the right to choose. Past life. Present life. I am finally free. She spoke to me in the live stream. Sister. You've returned too. Haven't you? So, you stopped loving, causing our life paths to deviate. But have you ever thought about what would happen if he didn't die? He would have kept pestering you. Pestering me. Draining us to the bone. Never stopping until death. I'm still a bit afraid. What if it's really as he said? That is one of the future protagonists of this world. So, I took care of him. How could someone like that have a future in our past life? Because of your kindness. You died. And so did I. Him and him. I don't know. In this life. I made sure he died before me. At least one of us sisters could break free. Sister. Farewell. I leave the rest to you. With these words, she switched the screen. And everyone in the live stream witnessed Miles Chu naked and tied to a chair, being devoured alive by wild dogs. Brutally bloody and like a beautiful butterfly. Zoe Jong leaped from the rooftop. It is said that many people in the live stream were moved to tears. Zoe Jong's live broadcast of her death shocked many people. Everyone is discussing it, with some asking why someone so young would choose such a method. While scumbags are indeed despicable, they are not worth risking one's life over. Of course, there were also some scumbags speaking up for Miles Chu. But they were quickly torn to shreds by others. Someone brought up the topic of rebirth. They even came to ask me and I said, I don't know. After Miles Chu's case was concluded, I buried Zoe Jong. Human emotions are truly so complex. I hated her for 2 lifetimes. And when I was reborn, I loathed her to the bone. Yet, when she died, deep down, I didn't feel the slightest bit of satisfaction. She couldn't choose her birth. She was a manipulator, playing the weakling, feigning innocence. And she did many terrible things. She just wanted to live a better life in this world. But her tragedy was caused solely by that man. For a moment's pleasure. For the so-called continuation of the family line. I placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums before her tombstone and sighed softly. In your next life, be born into a good family. Jong Jun. My father. When my mother asked for a divorce, he knelt. He kowtowed. He refused. But my mother had evidence that he embezzled public funds to speculate in stocks. To avoid going to jail, he agreed to the divorce. During the divorce, my mother gave him 500,000 yuan. So, Jong Jun took the money and quickly moved on to the next target. Although he is aged and no longer possesses the dashing appearance of his youth among his peers, he still stands out as a handsome middle-aged man. Soon, he became involved with a woman named Wang Li. Wang Li knew exactly how to charm him, promising to bear him a son, a dream he had always cherished. As a result, Jong Jun was overjoyed, practically beside himself with happiness. I heard from my mother that shortly after she gave birth to me, he suggested having a second child. He even persuaded my mother, saying, Your Chin family has a vast fortune. What future does a mere girl have? You must have a son to inherit the family property. It was probably around that time that my mother began to understand his intentions, at least to some extent. So my mother guarded against him, not allowing him to get involved in the family business. But my mother still underestimated him. He had already fathered an illegitimate daughter outside the family long ago. During this time, I deliberately inquired and learned that Zoe Jong's mother was also a hopeless romantic born with a congenital heart condition. She was never supposed to conceive or bear children. Yet for Jong Yon's sake, she risked her life to get pregnant and then risked her life again to bring the child into this world, and soon after she passed away. Jong Jun deceived her right up until her death. Zoe Jong had no funeral. But on the day of her burial, I called Jong Jun. The phone just kept ringing busy. Later, I found out that Jong Jun and Wang Li had gotten their marriage certificate that day. Then he went abroad with Wang Li, saying they were going on their honeymoon. After I graduated from university, I went back to help my mother manage the business. In the blink of an eye. Another 2 years had passed. The local police station contacted us, saying they had collaborated with Myanmar authorities to dismantle a fraud syndicate. They rescued several Chinese citizens who had been lured and trafficked there. They also unearthed several bodies in the wilderness near the industrial park. While verifying the identities of the deceased, the police found Zhang Yan's body and asked us to claim it through the DNA comparison between him and me. It was confirmed that the nearly skeletal remains were those of my biological father, Zhang Jun. After all the twists and turns, in the end, it was my mother and I who buried him. No guests attended the ceremony. On a sunny afternoon, his urn was quietly laid to rest. I reached out and touched the tombstone. Then after a long while softly asked my mother, "Mom, was Wang Li arranged by you?" My mother remained silent. "Is everything taken care of?" I asked her to this question. She only smiled. A gentle, serene smile. After Zhang Yan's death, I noticed my mother aging rapidly. Though she was only 50. But her hair had already turned gray. Her skin sallow and dry. The wrinkles at the corners of her eyes growing deeper. No matter how expensive the skincare products, they couldn't hold back her aging. I sensed something was wrong and prepared to take her to the hospital for a checkup. She shook her head with a smile. "Norah, it's no use. In my past life, I went mad after you died. Zoe Jong died on the operating table. I ran over Miles Chu with my car and then I was ready to die together with Zhang Jun." As I tied Zhang Jun to the car seat, locked the doors and drove into the moat, the system appeared. It asked me if I was willing to trade the rest of my life for a chance at rebirth. I say I am willing. I want to be reborn and go back to save my daughter. My mother died on her 50th birthday. It wasn't until her death that I realized we could be reborn and return. Not because someone is one of the future protagonists of this world. Nor is it because someone is the favorite of the heavenly Tao. But it was my mother who used the beauty of 2 lifetimes to buy my wretched survival. After my mother's funeral, all the relatives and friends had dispersed. Only I remained at the grave site. I placed an orchid before the tombstone and prepared to leave. Mom said I should live well. For my life was bought with hers. I can't let her down. But just at that moment, a voice abruptly appeared. "Host, are you willing to bind with me?" The moment I turned around, I saw a beautiful young man in wide sleeves and a long robe holding 2 orchid branches in his hand. He bent down to place the orchids in front of my mother's gravestone. "My previous host has died. You're her daughter and currently the only person compatible enough to bond with me. Baby host. Will you bond with me?" From that day on, the system stuck to me like a shadow. Eating my food, sleeping in my bed, and petting my cat. What's worse, he even tried to sleep with me. What should I do? Waiting online. Really urgent.